Hi, Paulsack. It's Good News Planet. I'm speaking to Dr. Jorge Plutzky. Hi, Doctor. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Okay, Director of Preventive Cardiology at Brigham and Women's Hospital, and I'm a faculty of Harvard Medical School, and we're going to talk today about how heart attacks are actually 5% more likely around the Christmas and the New Year season, some things that we can do to warning signs, become more aware of it, holiday heart attack phenomenon, lower chances of having a holiday heart attack. Very important. Thank you very much, Doctor. So what's the thought here?
Well, several studies now, a new one, have continued to reinforce this idea that there's a significant increase not just in heart attack, but actual cardiovascular death around the holidays. And it allows us to focus on this, to understand and try and think about why it's happening, what we can do to prevent it, and what we can do to make sure that we don't run into problems with what is the leading cause of death and disability for Americans throughout the year by paying attention to this.
Okay, so what are some of the things we should pay attention to? Should we first look in the mirror and see what we look like?
Well, that's always a good place to start. Most of us look in the mirror, as we begin our days and end our days, and that's a good place to start. In terms of why this uptick around the holidays, it's not exactly clear why it happens, but certainly the holidays are very stressful for folks, whether it's stress related to doing all the errands and getting the presents, whether it's stress related to the finances involved with that, whether it's stress related to the end of the year and challenges at work or challenges that relate to finances at the end of the year. Those can all be factors. People overindulge during the holidays, and the eating and excess drinking can be factors in terms of raising blood pressure or contributing to another issue that folks are so caught up with all these various things that they're ignoring their medications, that they're ignoring refilling their medications, making sure they have enough pills, or ignoring some of the signs and indicators that maybe there's a heart problem, that maybe these all are feeding into why we see this uptick during the holidays.
We hear a lot about cholesterol, and I believe, and I wonder, I'm sure you agree, that it's good to get it checked. But my doctor at one time told me about triglycerides, and I see here you have the word lipids. What are those things, and are those important to also be aware of?
Yeah, well, so when your doctor checks your numbers in this area of cholesterol, they do what's called a lipid profile. And so cholesterol and a lipid profile brings back different numbers. The main one that you have to focus on is LDL, the bad cholesterol. We tell the Harvard medical students the L stands for lousy, lethal, and low, and you want to lower. And when someone has had a heart attack, we're really looking to bring those levels down, very significantly. And so that's the one that the studies have shown time after time that lowering your LDL, your bad cholesterol, decreases risk. And so that's the main one we have people focus on. A different kind of particle than cholesterol are more the lipids that really reflect the triglyceride numbers, and that's often abnormal in people who have diabetes or prediabetes. When the triglycerides are high, the good cholesterol, the HDL, is often low, and we know that those are relevant and can be important issues, but the studies that show lowering your triglycerides and raising your HDL, its ability to prevent a heart attack or to make outcomes better for people who've already had a heart attack, that's been a little bit less clear. So I wouldn't ignore the triglycerides and HDL, but that first focus is LDL, making sure that that's an appropriate level is getting treated, and then also paying attention to triglycerides and HDL shouldn't be ignored, and very important, very much influenced by, as you say, what you see in the mirror about if your weight is up, if you have diabetes, you have pre-diabetes, really some modest interventions on how you eat and how active you are can improve your triglycerides and your HDL and decrease your risk of diabetes, and we think decrease your risk of a heart attack or stroke in the future. And so those are all important numbers, but the main one I would focus on is LDL, knowing your LDL.
How about if someone has had a heart attack, and because you guys are doing such great work, you're saving a lot of people. You're putting stents in them and so on. Say somebody has, at this time, also has, say, low blood pressure, and they start to give them medications. How do they handle, life after having a heart attack, if you don't mind me asking?
No, I think it's an incredibly important question. Someone has a heart attack, it's important to realize, and so relevant for your listeners, when someone has a heart attack, it's the culmination in most cases. It's the acute event of a process that's been going on often for decades. And so that means that there were all those decades where something could have done to avoid that scary event that's happened that might have required a stent, or in some cases has a very bad outcome and someone is no longer with us. So at that point, though, we really have tremendous treatments that can very much help keep someone from having another event, and that really involves by optimally improving the blood pressure, by aggressively bringing the LDL down. Once someone's had a heart attack, patients routinely go on to the highest dose of our most powerful statins, and that's been shown to be not only very well tolerated, but also have a big impact on having another event. There are things to be done about diabetes, and there are things to be done about lifestyle, and people will often be sent to a cardiac rehab program where they'll learn a lot more and begin getting active under supervision. And people can do exceptionally well. Just because you have a heart attack doesn't mean that you're necessarily condemned and that you're going to keep having more. It does mean you're at very high risk. But if you effectively use and take the treatments that are prescribed for you, you can do very well and don't need to continue to have problems in that area.
And the treatments, I mean, I think that maybe they only raise your raise your blood pressure so much. Does other things help then also? Because you can't, once I guess you have a certain amount of medicines, you can only probably take so much. Is exercise good? What are good things then to do in general, before a heart attack and after a heart attack? What are good things people can do?
Well, so, the obvious thing that seems simple, but it's just important to underscore is that you want to take your pills, because we see often people who stop taking them. And those are the pills that lower your blood pressure, because high blood pressure or hypertension is a major risk factor. To take your pills that lower your cholesterol, that are mainly going to focus on that bad LDL, and take your medications in terms of your diabetes. In terms of the lifestyle things, really some of the obvious things we all know but tend to ignore can be very effective of really trying to focus on real whole foods. That means avoiding processed foods, but mainly a plant-based diet. It doesn't mean it has to be completely plant-based, but one that's focused on vegetables with a reasonable, modest amount of protein, whatever that kind of protein is often a big step. Avoiding the very high carbohydrate, very high energy foods like bread and potato, pasta, fruit juices. These are very concentrated forms of energy, and most of us aren't burning off that much energy or enough energy where that doesn't lead to increased weight. And then even modest increases in activity of walking more and gradually building up your strength. As long as you're feeling good, you can certainly do that on your own. If you have any concerns or have any of these signs or symptoms that maybe your heart muscle is not getting enough blood supply, like the pressure or pain in your chest and having it radiate to your arms, or more shortness of breath or nausea or sweating, those should all be signs that I've got a problem and I need to go get checked out right away. In the absence of those, you can start being just even a little bit more attentive to your diet, and a little bit more attentive to being more active can get you on the right track to avoid a problem. I will say, I think this is really important. And if I can, step out of the office where we're seeing patients, or the cath lab where we're trying to put stents in, trying to save people, or in the middle of a heart attack, and take a longer view in a moment like this, it's that when we talk to patients who are having a heart attack, or talk to their families, and sometimes in situations where things have gone very bad and we have the worst possible news that we unfortunately have to share, inevitably the response is, if only. If only, Dad had paid more attention to this. He heard, years ago that he needed to start dealing with this. If only Mom had taken some time to think about these issues early on, maybe we wouldn't have reached this unfortunate point of a stroke or a heart attack, or even worse outcome like a cardiac death that's we're talking about because it's higher at the holidays. Well, even if that's a scary sort of thought, the fact is that this is that time. This is that moment where you could say, if only, it can be today. And certainly the end of the year and the beginning of a new year is a great time to think about getting evaluated, knowing your numbers, and getting on track for a program to make sure that you're going to have a lot of holidays to come in the years to come because you've paid attention to it now.
Dr. Plutzky, this is a very important interview for me. I thank you very much. Let me ask you one last question, and you're brilliant. Last quick question. What's good news for you? What would be good news for you personally?
Good news for me in the coming year?
Yeah, anytime, any day, next moment.
Okay, well, it would be that as a result of this interview, we have a lot of people going to heart.org and learning about these issues, getting the information that's there, and changing their future. And that, to me, is what it's all about. And I think this is can be an important step in that direction. I hope the American Heart Association has their servers crashing because of the good news that someone made a difference in their future or the future of one of their loved ones by getting more information.